I'm going to make room here. All of this yarn. I live in a life of abundance. Look at all of this yarn. There's so much. Did you think I was going to complain about all this yarn? Absolutely not. I'm a knitter, for heaven's sake. Who's going to complain about all this yarn? Not me. Not me. I love it. I love it. Okay. Hi knitters, my name is Bethany and this is the Capital K Knitting Podcast. I have not talked to you in a hot minute. We are about 4 or 5 days later than I would normally record this podcast. And that's for happy reasons. My sister-in-law came with her kids and visited, and it was lovely. And my yarn knitting room is also our guest room, and so whenever we have guests over, my recording space is being taken up by something else. And so now it is free again, and I'm back again, and I'm excited to talk to you about all the knitting things. And I tried last night and the lighting was so horrible. I was trying to do it with my little vlogger light that my husband got me for Christmas a couple of years ago, but I think it's starting to die on me. So not like just that that the battery is starting to die. I think that the battery can't even hold very much for very long. So we may need to purchase another light. I don't know. Feels rather early in this podcasting journey to have to buy supplies. But as you know, if you've been here for a minute, sometimes I do my podcast kind of late at night because that's when my kids are sleeping. Today, I'm able to do it in the morning, which is nice, and we're blessed with this lovely light coming in through the window. But yeah, we'll have to fix that. Also, on another note, kind of an administrative note before we jump into projects, the money that we sent to the American Red Cross for Ukraine is not really being used for Ukraine, if you've seen the Red Cross's Instagram feed. And that is really frustrating. So I am wanting to make it right somehow. And I know that isn't my fault in any way. I'm not like beating myself up about it. I'm pretty frustrated just with the organization itself. Because the American Red Cross has been really helpful to me and my family as a military family. And I am frustrated that the money that was supposed to go to Ukraine is now going to Russia. So, I'm going to be reevaluating how to help Ukraine in a more direct way. I have friends who are in Ukraine. They work with, there are 2 separate ministries that my friends work with, and it's all caring for children who are in the foster system. And obviously when there's a war, sadly children lose their parents, and so I'm sure they will be needing more help in this time. So I will be posting, I think I have a Ko-Fi page, and I've been thinking about posting more things about the activity of this channel and just details that anyone might want to, if you were like, what is that person that she's sending money to, about what do they do, then that would be over there, and it wouldn't be taking up as much space here. Not that it's not worth that space, but not everybody would be interested in that. And so I'm gonna be putting a little blurb about it on the Ko-Fi page. And I'm also going to be doing a de-stash on the Ko-Fi page soon. There are just some things that I don't need anymore in my knitting life. And so, feel free to check that out. I will be announcing that on Instagram when that is starting, that you can go over there and take advantage of it. This is my favorite chai. It's just from Walmart. It's is it called Oregon? Something like that, chai. And it's in a little mug that my mom brought back for me when she went to Germany, and I absolutely love it. Okay, diving into finished objects. This is a knitting podcast, right? Come on. This is my finished object that I'm wearing. I love it. It is called the By the Campfire Cardigan by Rachel Ilsley. It is also, I think she's also known as Unwind Knitwear, because that's on the pattern, but I think on Ravelry it's under her name. So, and if you're searching for it, putting cardigan at the end of it really helps. There are less options to roll through. Apparently, there's lots of campfire patterns on Ravelry. So, this is so cozy. It is made from Letlopi yarn and Holst super soft yarn. So, the black here is the Letlopi Galaxy colorway, and the gray is the Light Ash Heather Letlopi colorway, and then the green is Holst super soft fingering held double in the Tundra colorway. I really love how this turned out. I was not sure before I blocked it. I was like, I don't know, guys. So this finished object might be a cautionary tale to some of you about taking notes on your project as you're doing it, because honestly, there is no telling when you will return to it. We all do this, right? All of us have done this where we think, oh, I'll remember because I'm going to be knitting on this forever until it's finished. Cut to that this half, right? So it's knit sideways and then you steek the bottom. So cut to, I had this half of the body done, right? But then it took me a while to get from this half over here. And by the time I got to where I needed to remember about some adjustments, it had been over a week. And I had no idea. Now, the smart thing to do is to go back and count your stitches, right? Just go and count your stitches, which is what I was telling myself the whole time. And I thought, I know what I'm doing. Come on. I definitely made the wrong decision and did not go back and count my stitches. And this is how it has been affected because I did that. Number one, these halves need to line up. These stitches need to line up, right? Because there's a 3 needle bind off in there, which makes this gorgeous seam in here. I don't even know if you can see it. It's right there. There we go. Really close. Right there. Makes this gorgeous seam for it. And because they need to line up, I should have counted my stitches right away to make sure I knew what the increases I needed to do were. So on this side, you can see this line is gorgeous. The color work is all just so good. But because my increases on this side were more than they should have been, my color work looks a little bunchy on this side because I thought that I had to increase dramatically, and then I realized I'd made a mistake, so I decreased dramatically, which is why there's this little wrinkle here in this fabric, and it's all right next to this color work, so it makes it look like I did the color work too tight. And I know that I didn't, because not only is my sleeve just like, it's good, you know what I mean? But this whole side is really great, and I blocked them the same way. So count your stitches, pause. I know it's hard sometimes, but just pause. And this is also how forgiving this pattern is, though, because it is knit sideways, right? Knitting stretches most this way. It doesn't, where the rows connect, it doesn't stretch as much. But this way, sideways on the rows, it's going to stretch a lot. So that's really great, and it makes this project even more, shall we say, malleable when you're doing the blocking process. So while I was picking up the bottom, which took a long time because you're supposed to do, I think, only 7 rows on the bottom for the ribbing. I did 10 because I thought it would look nice to have it be a little bit longer. And picking up all of this and knitting 10 rows took me a few days. It's just so long. I think it's over 400 stitches down here. So that took a while, and as I was picking it up on the side that had too many increases on it, I actually picked it up farther away from my steek than the rest of it because I wanted to just kind of lose that fabric under there. And I did it on the other side too. I just kind of laid the fabric out to where I thought it should have been and then picked up those stitches instead. And I'm going to just kind of see how that felt under there, and then maybe cut it again, or maybe not. I'm just going to leave it for a minute and see. And that's one of the fun parts about making your own clothes, is you can kind of see how it reacts to time and your surroundings and make adjustments after that too. Which I think should be a whole new section of knitting podcasts, by the way, is edited finished objects. If you've made a change to the finished object, like, you should come back and show us what you did and tell us if it's worked out or not, or like why you did it. I think that's huge to me. I think that is a really big factor in handmade clothing for me anyway. The one purposeful modification that I made to this pattern is the ribbing on the back. What she has you do in the pattern is different than what I did because I wanted the ribbing to come all the way across the back. The way that the pattern has you do it, I'm not going to tell you how she has you do it, but the result of what she has you do is the ribbing doesn't have this on it. So it's just flat there, and then this ribbing kind of appears on the front. And I didn't like that as much. I understand why she did it now that I've knit it, but I still stick with my choice on that. I think it was a fine choice to make, and I like it. I think it does exactly what I wanted it to do. It keeps my neck really warm, and I'm one of those where I want my sweaters up here. And yeah, I'll even take hoodies when I'm wearing them and use them as like half a scarf and put them up like that. Can you tell I was growing up in the era where people popped their polo collars? I definitely did. The last mistake that I made, and some of you may have already noticed, is this ribbing. This side has 15 rows and this side has 10. So I'm not entirely sure what I was doing. I know I was knitting and not checking the other side of my cardigan because the other side was upstairs and I was knitting it downstairs. I saw no reason to go get it. There were reasons to go get it, obviously. However, I did not rip back on this pattern. I did it once. And that's because I accidentally put the ribbing for the front on the back at one point, and I did have to fix that. But the rest of it, I just was like, you know what? Let's roll with this. Let's see what happens, because I can always rip it back later too. And I don't think I will. Even though there's that little pucker in the back, like right here, you can see this little pucker there. I don't mind. Everything else has kind of shifted after blocking, and I don't even have that many T-pins or anything. I have no blocking mats. I just did it on towels, stuck them where I wanted to stick them to make sure that everything laid correctly, and it came out beautifully. So that's probably not what every designer wants to hear. Like, I made a million mistakes and it came out just fine. But for me, it was really an exercise on what could I continue with. I struggle with perfectionism a lot in my life, and it's even taken me a while to come to terms with that's what I struggle with. It's not just that the world is not good enough and I value excellence and no one else does or whatever. It's that I struggle with perfectionism. And so I have really enjoyed this knit because it has been a slow exercise in letting go of perfectionism and seeing that I still got something really cool out of it and something really warm. It is cool in this room right now. It is cooler than I would prefer, and I am feeling really great. Before I put this on for the episode, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be good enough, but it is. With this sweater, it is. The one modification that I think I'm going to make is to rip back the ribbing and add some more sleeve and then have the ribbing. So maybe just do, I put 10 rows of ribbing on there, and I think the pattern had a little bit less. So I think what I'm going to do is rip back the ribbing, do 10 rows of stockinette, and then do 10 rows of ribbing, and I think that'll be just perfect. And if for some reason it's not perfect, I will come back to you and tell you why, because I really do think that should be a section of people's podcasts, is like the edited finished objects. What worked and what didn't, and why? Why did I choose to change it? Why did I not? It's important to me, guys. In this handmade clothing saga that we're all participating in, the information is valuable. So there we have it. Finished object number 1 by the Campfire Cardigan. Totally worth the knit. I think it was just a real learning experience for me. I've never knit anything sideways before. I've never steeked anything before this, and it was really fun. It was a huge learning curve for me, and I got something great out of it, and it's so cozy. And I thought I would be finishing it. Obviously, it's April, and I thought I would be finishing it and just blocking it and then putting it in a tote somewhere so that I could have it for next winter. But the weather is still yo-yoing here in Kentucky before it officially decides that it's spring. And so it's been really nice to have on. My favorite way to wear it is to have a flannel shirt underneath it, because then it's like soft with the flannel and it's super cozy. This is not a next to skin knit for me. I know that some people, like, it doesn't matter for them, but I had a t-shirt on under it the first time I put it on because I was just trying to figure out like the fit and everything, and I thought, wow, no. I could get used to that, but I don't want to have to, you know. Second finished object is the Snowy Day socks. They are finally done. I've got my little ends poking out there because they're not quite dry, so I haven't snipped those yet. They've been sitting in here for a little bit, but they're big socks. So can you see this leg? It's so long. I may never knit a leg this long again in my life. This one was a test knit for Katie Anders. So I did the first one as the test knit, and I really like the colorwork section. It's really fun and really easy, actually. So if you are trying to get into colorwork socks and you're thinking like, some of this looks really complicated, I don't know how my tension is going to work and everything, this is a great starter pattern for that. I learned a lot about colorwork even with this being a more simple design for socks, and that has been really fun. So there's a double thick cuff up here. She does that in her patterns. It's obviously optional. You don't have to, everything in a knitting pattern is optional, right? It's just guidelines, as they say in Pirates of the Caribbean. But I really like the double thick cuff. I've incorporated it into my patterns as my pattern. Also, I say patterns plural because the next one is upcoming. You'll see. Anyway, I've incorporated it into my patterns as well because the stretchiness factor for it is, I think, unparalleled. So maybe tubular cast-ons are closest to it. But anyway, this is going all the way up a calf, so I decided that we would definitely be going with that. I have been knitting my socks. Almost every sock that I knit in 2021 is too big for me. So this is the last second sock of 2021, and that was one of my winter goals, was to get those done. I did not get my goals finished by the first day of spring at all. First of all, I was confused about which day was the first day of spring. I thought it was the 22nd of March. Definitely was the 20th. I saw all these makers with like happy first day of spring, these lovely posts, and I was like, hey, what? I've totally missed the mark entirely. So then I thought, whatever, I'll just keep going until the day that I thought it was. Still didn't make it. Whatever, it's okay. They're done now. My goals for winter were to have my tread heavy sock pattern published, which it's out now and I love it, and to have a cardigan done, and to have a jumper sweater done, like a pullover sweater done. And the pullover that I started is not the pullover that I finished before the end of the winter, but that's okay. It still fits in the category. And to get all the socks, all the second socks of 2021 finished, which I had 3 left to do. So these are the snow day socks. You might notice that there is no reinforced heel on these socks. That is not because the pattern says not to reinforce it. I think she does a slip stitch heel in her pattern. I just, for some reason, on the first sock didn't do it, which is hilarious to me because I've published a pattern about reinforcing more than just the back of your heel. And for some reason in this part of my life, I was just like, nah, I just didn't do it. I think, honestly, I was so focused on trying to get it right that I messed it up. I was so focused on trying to get like the stitch counts and stuff right for the whole sock that I messed it up. So anyway, I was also in a hurry to get this first sock done because I had made some huge tension errors on my first try. And I didn't realize I had done that until I had finished the gusset decreases on the foot, and I had to start over. So I was actually knitting them 2 at a time at first, and then had to just stop and knit one of them so that I could finish the test knit on time. So these are from 2 different skeins because of that. And you can see that the way that the color is pooling is a little bit different, but you can also see that well, maybe you can't. Can you see it? This back one is a little bit lighter. The cream is a little bit lighter, and that's because they're from 2 different skeins. It's not a problem on the yarn dyer's part or anything like that. That's super, super common that each skein is just a little bit different, especially when you're dealing with hand dyed stuff. And Huasco sock is kettle dyed yarn. And so if you are doing a sweater or even a sock, and you know you're going to be dipping into that second skein, I didn't know that, but if you know you're going to be dipping into that second skein, you might want to alternate your skeins as you're knitting. Some people don't care. I didn't care enough to alternate. I even had some left over from the last skein, and I decided I wasn't going to alternate them together. I was going to just keep going and have one from one and one from the other. Now, the reason that all of my socks from 2021 do not fit me is because I was knitting them too wide. The first pair, I say all of my socks, 1 pair of socks from 2021 fits me. My first pair. And I was such a tight knitter at the beginning of knitting socks that I thought, wow, these are like titanium. They are never going to wear out, first of all. And second of all, I bet I could go up a needle size and not have such a tight gauge. So I did that. I started knitting my socks on 2.5 millimeter needles instead of 2.25, and that's 1/4 millimeter, and it still makes a huge difference because it's exponential, right, throughout the whole knitted object that you're doing. And so for this, since this part was color work, I did that actually on a 2.75 millimeter needle. And you can even see, because I did it on DPNs, there's a little bit of laddering happening on different places here. I'm okay with that. It'll settle. It'll move around and settle. But for some people, it might be good for you to know. Maybe you want to arrange your stitches differently. Maybe you don't want to use DPNs for that reason. I use 9-inch circulars for all of my socks now, but I don't have, at the time, I didn't have a 2.75 millimeter needle on circular needles, and so I did the second sock on DPNs anyway, because that's how I did the first one. And I was trying to control gauge as much as I could on that second sock so they would come out the same way. I even made sure to count all of my rows on the foot, which were 71 rows, which is incorrect for, yeah, it's just not, all of this is wrong for my foot. And so I finished it, and I'm going to be giving them away to someone that they will fit. And yeah, but I have learned a lot about gauge for socks. In 2021, I learned a lot, and it served me really well, because my tread heavy socks, when I was designing them, and this is so funny because these are my tread heavy socks. They're made from non-superwash yarn, so they're a little bit fuzzier than your normal superwash, but you can see that, maybe you can. It is hard to see. I wear them all the time, guys. That should be an indication, but you can kind of see. The eye of partridge heel goes back here and then comes around and then stops here, and then you get some eye of partridge goodness again at the ball of the foot. And I carried this one all the way through the toe as well, and part of that is because it is non-superwash, no nylon yarn. This is knitting Nakabi yarn in a one-of-a-kind colorway. A few months ago, when I was doing some knitting stuff, I did not know the acronym OOAK stood for one of a kind. So I just thought everybody was into this thing that I didn't know about, that it probably stood for something in a show that I hadn't watched. And so everybody was doing these different interpretations of what OOAK, whatever that was, not knowing that everyone was just making one-of-a-kind colorways. But I'm on board now. I get it now. Guys. I get it. And I don't remember how I put it together, actually, but to whoever helped me do that, thank you. This one, I forgot to say the yarn. This is Huasco sock in the Antofagasta colorway. I think it is so interesting to see the difference between this yarn skeined up, right? Which I have about, 60 grams of this left. And this is the Antofagasta colorway. It's kind of, a lot of it is off of there because that's where the price sticker was. And then this purple is in Leading Men Fiber Arts in the colorway Gothic Queen. And it actually has a little cashmere in it too. But it's still a sock yarn, technically, because it has nylon in it also. And I love it. I love the way these came out. I wish they would fit me. I wish I would have had my gauge correct. Obviously, that's not the fault of the pattern at all. Because that's the funny thing about socks. You can know your foot measurements. You can know how to make socks and follow a pattern. But if your gauge math is off, they still won't fit you. So because I was dealing with, I had measured on my first pair of socks, which were way tighter than what I was knitting currently then, my math was off. And so I was continually I probably knit 3 pairs of socks that were too big for my feet. And I was getting really frustrated, and I was still wearing them because, come on, they're hand knit socks. But I wanted to figure it out. And so when I did the tread heavy socks, I measured what I was knitting at the time. And that's my best piece of advice for anyone who's knitting something new. Measure the gauge that you are knitting at the time. I understand that maybe you just did a project that was the same yarn and the same, like it's also in the round, and so you're going to go measure that and see what you might need to do. But just measure what you're doing at the time. Also, I don't do a lot of gauge swatching. I often try the project, measure that project, and then if it's not right, I'll frog it and then try it again. Because is it technically frogging if your first try was a gauge swatch? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. I've got my finished socks. I've got my finished cardigan. I've got two finished socks. They do not match. They're two finished separate socks that I want to show you. This one is the Malweena sock, and this pattern is by Vert and Rose. Her name is Alex, and she does these beautiful lace patterns. Aren't those gorgeous? It reminds me of butterflies. I love it. It's so pretty. She adds this rib back of the leg here. Obviously, you can make the leg as long as you want. She sets it up so that the lace chart will repeat in a way that makes it so that you can make it as long as you want. The only modification I made to her pattern, and I asked before I did this because this was a test knit, is I took the slip stitch heel and did a tread heavy modification down here and then again on the ball of the foot, because these are for my sister and she's the one who inspired the tread heavy sock pattern in the first place. And so I'm going to be giving these to her for her birthday. She doesn't know that yet. And yeah, I absolutely love this knit. Her lace charts are somewhat addictive because I'm like, oh, I just want to get back around to the next row of lace here. It's very cute. It's just so pretty. And when it blocked out, I had already blocked the Malweena sweater, right? But I didn't block those sleeves as aggressively as I could have. So when I blocked this sock, I was just like, oh, wow, that's really, really pretty. I did these on 2.25 millimeter needles at a 56 stitch count because my sister's feet are a little bit smaller than mine. I have decided right now that the 60 stitch count circumference is what's best for my foot. I was doing 64 for a while, but obviously my socks were too big. And since switching to the 60 stitch count, it's been way better. I knit this in Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock in the colorway Strawberry Tea. I absolutely love it. It's so, look at those colors. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Ugh. I've stared at this for 5 hours now. So this came out a little stripier than I thought it was going to, but I'm not mad at it. I think it's still lovely. It doesn't it doesn't distort the lace at all, and that was the one thing I was a little bit worried about. So I might be doing another pair in a more solid color. I have obviously lots of fingering weight yarn, and so I might be knitting up a pair for myself, because they didn't take very long since the lace was so, I want to find a different word than addictive, but like it pulled me in. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing it. So I'm going to be casting on that second sock very soon because I don't want to have the second sock situation at the end of 2022 that I had at the end of 2021. That is not my favorite thing. And I just want to be able to wear them. I just want to be, not these, Sarah will be wearing these, but I just want to be able to wear the socks that I knit for myself and for them to match, because sometimes I'll have two socks that don't match and I'll wear them anyway until I get the other socks done. But yeah. Okay. That's all the details on that, right? Yeah, go over to Alex's page. She usually does a coupon for the initial launch of her pattern, and I can't remember how long it has been out, so that might be done, but it's totally worth the price of the pattern itself anyway, so check her out. And this, my friends, is my favorite part of today, and that is the DK weight tread heavy sock. It has been knit. It is ready to be tested. Oh, Mary, now I'm laughing every time I hear the phrase tester call. If you don't follow Mary on Maradiddle Makes, you totally should. She's hilarious. She and I both have ADHD, and so description of how she talks fast just cracked, oh gosh, it cracked me up. And now I can never hear tester call the same way. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a call for testers for this. I think today I'm going to be putting that out, and I'm very excited about it. These were so quick to knit up. Holy moly. You wouldn't think that the difference between fingering weight socks and DK socks would be that big of a difference, but it is, heaven's sakes. I got the whole leg done, even though obviously I did these as shorties, right? There's only like 10 rows here, but I wanted some stripy socks. And yeah, it just took me an evening to do all the way down the leg, which was really great. And I'm not the fastest knitter, guys. I don't know if you know, but I'm not the fastest knitter. So this is Knitting Nakabi DK weight yarn in her Weeds colorway. She has all non-superwash yarns, and they are all naturally dyed. So if you're looking for a non-superwash, if you're looking for a dyer to support in general, go check her out. But also, if you are into non-superwash yarns and you are into naturally dyed yarns, she is like the best. She's the best. She has such good yarn. Like, it's so squishy, so good. You will see later that I'm also incorporating more of her stuff into my patterns because, and this is why I think her yarn is so good. Other yarns, I can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's special. I want to keep that for something special, and it'll stay on the shelf. With Kelsey's yarn, I get it, and I think, ooh, this is going to be special. I really like this. This is really squishy. This is really great. But it can only stay on the shelf for so long. I have to use it after I buy it because it's so good. And I think that's the difference between like good yarn and the best yarn. And hers is in the best category. So she knows I love it. She knows I love her. So and she just had a shop update, guys. She just had a shop update. So you need to go check that out. She has all these beautiful colorways. They're so good. She has a new base that she's dyeing now too that has BFL in it. And oh, so good. So this one, I was trying to use up a few scraps with these dark stripes. This is what I made my green Musselburgh out of that I wear constantly. And that is in the Stolen Stitches yarn by Carol Feller. This is a sport weight yarn, and it is in the colorway Mosquito Coast. Here, that's kind of, the colorway is kind of covered up there, but by the price sticker. But it is a 60% merino wool, 20% yak, 20% linen, and so the warmth and the kind of drape of it is really cool. I really liked it, and I was holding it together with the last of the moss colorway of the Cumulus alpaca that I had with my Musselburgh. Also, I love the heathered yarn here of that Mosquito Coast colorway. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough of the Cumulus alpaca here to finish the second sock, but I'm determined to use every bit of it. I love being able to run out of yarn in a project. I love that. And just like, that one's all done. That one's all used up. I love that. So we've got our reinforcement all the way here, and I used the Cumulus alpaca because there's silk in it, and I wanted to have like a little bit more reinforcement there since this is a no nylon yarn. And then we continue the reinforcement down here. It's through the heel turn and underneath the heel. Then I added the ribbing feature on this sock, and then did just the ball of my foot here for that one. I didn't continue it through the toe on this one, just so that you could see the different options here. So this one is one option, and this one is another option to do your through the heel and then do from the ball of the foot through the toe. So I'm going to knit up my second sock with my testers so that we'll all be kind of on the same page, and they'll be knitting their first sock while I'm knitting my second sock. And yeah, that should be published soon. I really love it. It fits me really well. And yeah, I'm excited about it. If you are a toe up person, I am confident that you will be able to see this pattern and modify, reverse engineer it, and be able to make it work for a toe up situation. I'm going to be writing a toe up pattern, but I feel like it's important for me to do a couple of toe up socks. I already know how I'd like to do the toe. Mary introduced me to these yarn over increases that are just heaven. I just love them so much. There's no holes, no gappage, no nothing, which is counterintuitive with a yarn over, right? But it works out that way and it's really great. And then I have an afterthought heel option for the tread heavy socks. So if you're a toe up person, you will probably be able to figure it out anyway, how to do that. But I would like to have a toe up heel option that you wouldn't have to do. And I have pretty much decided on the shadow wrap heel that I want to take the shadow wrap heel and do a reinforced version of it and put that in the pattern. So yeah, and that's mostly because Ruth from Ruth Loves to Knit was saying she was going back to her heel flap and gussets because she couldn't reinforce, like the heel flap and gusset was reinforced and the shadow wrap heel wasn't. And I want her to have the best of both worlds because she's the best. Ruth is the best. If you haven't gone over to Ruth Loves to Knit podcast, she's the cutest woman on the planet. I think she's probably the fastest knitter I've ever, like, she's always got a billion things that she's finished, and I love it. I'm so inspired. And she's just really honest about, I think one week she said she was knitting all her feelings and that's why she had so much done, and I totally resonate with that. And she also, if you're a Christian woman, at the end of her podcast, if you're a Christian anything, man, woman, it's okay. You can, I do that all the time, that I'm saying like ladies or whatever to knitters when obviously there are men who knit. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to change that in my language. If you are a Christian person, then you will really enjoy her for another reason as well. At the end of her knitting podcast, she always gives like kind of this signpost of like, that's the end of the knitting and this is what I got from scripture this week. And if you're not interested in that, then you can head out and, best of the world to you. And then she just, shares what's on her heart, and it makes me weep every week. Like, I don't know her. I would love to know her, but like, she didn't know me, but I'm just like sitting here like, come on, Lord, like you're bringing your word through a knitting podcast to me right now. Like, oh, all right. That's what I needed, and now I'm crying. Anyway, so yeah, Ruth is the best. Wow, that was a really big tangent, but that's how I roll, guys. So here we go. Oh, I didn't tell you. This stripe is the Knitting Nikabi colorway Silver Linings that came in her Herbology box. I'm using it in a sweater also, so I'll show that to you in the ball in a minute too. I just couldn't wait to use it. It's really cute. So it's like this monochrome green situation happening. Okay, that is all the finished things. Let's jump into whips. Okay, so a couple of things got frogged. Not because we're done with them. We actually need to restart them. So one of them I knew I was going to need to frog, and that was my the Basset hat by Crea Studio. My gauge was wrong because I was using the wrong needle size. I thought that I was using the right needle size, but I apparently had changed it to do something else and assumed that I had left it on the right thing, and I had not. So I frogged that. I'm going to have to recast that on. And then the soft and cushy hat for Ian, I actually was using the right needle size, but my gauge was still off. and I liked the fabric I was getting from that. So instead of changing my needle size, I decided I would change the stitch count for it. So I did the math on that. I went ahead and measured everything before I frogged it to make sure that my math was right, and to redo it, because it was definitely like a necklace. It wasn't it wasn't hat material at this point. So casting on is the part that takes the most mental energy for me for a project. So I haven't done those yet, as I've been trying to finish some things and get them off the needles, but those will be re-entering our rotation soon. Okay, so the last personal knitting thing that doesn't have anything to do with responsibility, no test knits, no nothing, is the Drk Everyday sweater. Now, I'm getting a little tired of showing it to you at the state it's in, because we've got some ribbing down here now. I think I've got like 30 more rows of ribbing to do, which feels like a lot on the body of a sweater, but we're almost there, guys. We are so close. And then I'll be starting on the sleeves. This is the Drk Everyday sweater by Andrea Mallory. I'm cropping it a little bit because the other pullover that I knit is not a cropped sweater, and so I feel like I'll have an option to wear with dresses and skirts. I tried to wear the Malweena one that's not cropped with a dress earlier, and it didn't work. I understand why people crop them to wear with higher waisted things. So that's the plan for this one, and it'll be really nice because it's a sport weight sweater, which is why it's taking quite a minute to finish, but it'll be perfect for the spring. I don't remember what the recommended needle size for this is, but I am using a 3.25 millimeter needle, which, you know, sport weight on 3.25 millimeter needle. Holy moly, this is going to take a hot minute, but that's okay. It's going to be worth it when it's done. This is Huasco sock in the colorway ochre, and I really like this by itself, but I also really like it held together with this Cumulus alpaca in the rust colorway. I think it makes this really honey-esque fabric, and I will be so pleased to wear it when it's done. I think this is probably the thing that I have tried on to wear the most before it's been finished, and that gives me a good feeling about how it will be when it is finished. I am holding this project in a JoJo bag. I love her big sweater bags. Oh, I love it. I have 2 bags from other people. I've made the rest of my project bags because I can sew, and I thought, I have this fabric, I might as well make project bags from it. However, the difference between me making a project bag and someone who has been making project bags for a living, vast difference. And I love this one because it's big enough for a whole sweater. I was keeping this one in it until it was finished. And now this one has been transferred to it. And I love it because it's got this pocket in there, which I just kind of keep my wallet in. And I can also keep notions in this little zipper. And I really love the zipper she chose because there's fuzz on there. There is zero, like there's no gap in there to get yarn caught on anything. There's no, you know how zippers often have a little, you know what I'm talking about, the little gap where they close in the pull. This zipper doesn't have it somehow. So you've got your little notions pouch in there that you can put things in. And I put stitch markers in there because the last time I was at a knit night and I was working on something, I didn't have any stitch markers, so I just have kept those in there. I'm probably going to put a bunch of other notions in there too, because I just take the project out of this bag and put another project in the bag because I like it that much. You can fold over the top and make yourself a little bucket because it's thick enough to do that and stand when it has your project in there. That's really nice. She has an update, I think, every Wednesday. Whenever she has new bags, it happens on Wednesday. and so worth getting, so worth it. I was waiting for a fabric that I really liked to come up on the shop, and that one I thought, oh, that's really cute, very spring-like. That's what I'm gonna get for my end of winter knitting investment, and it has been great. Okay, on to our responsibility knitting category. If you were here with me last time, then you already know, but for those of you who are new, I kind of have this responsibility knitting category in my head where if I have told someone that I will knit them something, or if it's a gift for someone, or if it's a test knit, all of those kind of fall under responsibility knitting for me. Or if it's something that I have a design for. I live on an army base, so sometimes the helicopters fly pretty low, if you heard that. So this is the first on the responsibility knitting category. This is a little baby jumpsuit for my niece Lilia, who was born, I think, over a month ago now. So I'm wanting to get this one finished pretty quickly. I'm not sure if the deadline for one of the test knits is soon enough that I would have to dive into that first and then finish this one, but there's not very much left. We've got our little button band here, which is so cute, and I am resisting the urge to put the buttons on it until after I block it. I don't know if I'll be able to resist the urge, but I'm trying, because I'm realizing that this little placket is getting kind of stretched just because of the nature of stockinette. It's curling in on itself. So I might actually just take some removable stitch holders and clamp it together while I'm knitting it so it stops doing that. And then we have our armbands and neckband already attached. I really love doing finishing work as I'm going because I like to just watch it, you know, get created. So this is fingering weight held double, which is a little bit thicker than the DK weight here, but I think it's fine. I think it's coming out just fine, and especially after blocking, I think it'll be great. I'm doing the 6 to 9 month size, and my brother and sister-in-law generally have much smaller babies than I do, and so I love how the yarn is working up. I didn't think it was very tonal. It looked kind of just a little bit flatter in its color in the skein, or in the cake. Like, it doesn't look super tonal in the cake, but as it's being knit up, it's been really fun to watch these tones come out. And the main color is Katie Anders yarn. Her brand is called Yurt and Yarrow yarn, and it's in the colorway number 2. It is a non-superwash yarn. Or no, it is a superwash yarn. Sorry, it's 100% superwash yarn because I don't want to be giving a new mama something that she has to like block for her baby. So I'm going to block it before I give it to her just so that it kind of lays the way it should. And I'm going to give her a little note that she can treat it like a sheep and it should be fine. And yeah, and I'm excited about sending it off to her. It shouldn't take very much longer to do. It's just one of those where you're like, all right, I need to do this much more before I split for the legs. But I kind of wish I could split for the legs now, but that would make it just a wonky little knit where it's too wide for the size that it is. And so I just need to persevere and finish this up. Baby knits they don't take that long, right? But because I expect for them to not take long, they still feel like they take longer than they should. So this is going really well. It's going to be super cute. I can't wait to send it off to her and see little Lilia in it. Lil Lilia. The contrast color for the jumpsuit is this Harvest Fingering in the cinnamon colorway. It is actually a really stretchy yarn, which is fun. It's 100% superwash merino, so it's actually not a sock yarn. It's just a fingering weight yarn, so that's totally fine too. That's good. And it's just kind of a flat color, but I really like the tone of this one. I also have a sock that I was working on, but I have paused my progress on it because this is for my husband's coworker. I honestly don't know why I decided to knit it. I feel like I felt compelled because he said his dream was to always have a pair of knit socks, and I'm like, what? That's weird. But whatever, I like knit socks, so why am I judging him? This is the toe of that sock that I was going to knit for him, but I stopped because his stitch count for his foot circumference is going to be 64 stitches. My stitch count for my foot circumference is 60 stitches. And so because these socks would actually fit him, I'm going to offer these to him first because he wanted kind of a longer leg and he likes purple. So there's some purple in this. I'm going to offer these to him. And if he wants them, then great. Check, that's already done. And then I'm going to go back a few rows on this one because this is my first toe up sock. I'm going to go back a few rows and go back to the 60 stitch circumference and continue on with that. These are going to be the little wing socks by Mary of Mary Diddle Makes. I am so excited to actually be doing that. I'm also doing a test knit of her Birds of Prey socks. Those are in testing right now and they look fantastic. I'm really excited about that. She's just really cranking out some sock patterns, and we know each other through the internet, right? But I'm so proud of her. You know those people that you look at and you're like, I am rooting for you, and like if we lived near each other, I would definitely want to go to yarn shop with you, like for sure. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Oh, internet friends are fun. I'm gonna make room here. All of this yarn. I live in a life of abundance. Look at all of this yarn. There's so much. Did you think I was going to complain about all this yarn? Absolutely not. I'm a knitter, for heaven's sake. Who's going to complain about all this yarn? Not me. Not me. I love it. I love it. Okay, so this test knit is for Vert and Rose of, the Ola cardigan, and I am in love with it. I am in love with it because it is a non-seamed saddle shoulder cardigan, which some of you may be like, how is that possible? Well, with her instruction, it is possible. And these are my little saddle shoulders. They're so cute. Ugh. She said she was inspired by the French braids that her mom used to put in her hair. Isn't that so cute? My mom used to put French braids in my hair too. And now knowing that, I love it even more. I have to add the neckband to it, and I think I'm actually going to do that sooner rather than later. Like I said, I kind of like to watch it grow as it would when it's finished, and so I'll probably do that next. I just finished the short rows for it. I'm going to be doing the increases, the yoke increases for it, and I am just loving the fabric that is coming from this yarn. It is so neutral. It's such a great gray oatmeal situation. I think I may never take it off once it's off the needles. This is, I am holding two things together. It is a 100% alpaca yarn from Juniper Moon Harriet. It is in the colorway Tumbleweed, which I think is just so good for that. Oh, I love it. Such a good oatmeal-y grayish situation. And then I'm holding it together with a Surrey alpaca. And you guys know I'm more of a Surrey alpaca person than a mohair person. I find mohair kind of itchy. I heard from someone, it was probably a podcaster, that if you're not a mohair person, you're probably an alpaca person. And if you're not an alpaca person, you're probably a mohair person. So if you've tried one of them and haven't liked it, maybe give the other one a try. I think it's worth it. So I'm holding that together with a Cumulus alpaca, which is an alpaca silk blend, in the colorway Pearl, right? Pearl. It's in there. There it is in there. And that is very similar to the natural colorway, but it is a little different. Which I like. It's not as yellow of a tone. It's a little cooler, which is nice. I know I'm holding alpaca with alpaca, but the reason that I'm doing that is because actually of the silk content here, because I want it to be able to have a little more structure when I block it than is generally the case with something that is 100% alpaca. So that is the plan there. And I also like how the silk gives it this little white, you know, marline every once in a while that you can see. I like that, how it helps bring these tones out here. The last thing on the responsibility docket is this test knit, which is a pattern by Jennifer Berg, who is the Native Knitter on Instagram. She made a design that reminded her of the Navajo blankets that she remembers growing up, and I love this design. It's so good. It's color work, right? But she also has stripes in here, and I just started this second block of color work here where I'm incorporating this blush copper again. It's just gonna be, I know I'm gonna love it. It's a DK weight sweater, and it has 5 different colors in it, which I've never done that many before, so I'm very excited. It's a short sleeve sweater in the pattern. I'm not sure. She's giving us the freedom to do longer sleeves or shorter sleeves if we want, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might do the short sleeve version and then see how I feel about it and maybe add on to it. I am still thinking. So the main color here is Knitting Nakabi's Blush Copper. I love this colorway. She did a couple skeins of it in the update before this latest one, and I just bought them both because it was like, well, those need to be mine. So those came home with me. What's fun about her labels is not only does she put the name and, you know, all the pertinent information on there, she also puts what she's dyed it with. And the blush copper was dyed with madder root and black tea. If you can hear my children, they're actually playing a game and having fun, so don't worry if you hear any happy shrieks. Yeah, they're saying the fire monster. They're playing a game. So, yeah. And this is the second color. This is the elderberry herbology box that Knitting Nakabi did. She has an April one upcoming, which is going to be chamomile, which I'm really excited about. And she actually dyes the yarn with the herb that is featured is the theme of that month. So you get yarn, you get, she also has a tea company, so you get tea with the box, and then you get a couple goodies that are surprises, which I was so in love with. I mean, come on, a box of knitting stuff that's packed by a yarn dyer knitter. Come on. Yes to all of that. Yes. So I'm so excited about the chamomile one. It's an opt-in box, so be sure to follow her on Instagram for the next one, which I think is going to be she'll be releasing it in June, so you'll want to follow her before then so that you can sign up for the June one. Okay. And so I'm using 2 of her colorways in there, and I'm in love with them. I love the way her yarn feels. Oh, so in love. And this actually looks like kind of a darker green. These little crosses here look like a darker green, but they're actually a navy blue. Isn't that funny how color plays? Maybe not a navy. These are still happy sounds, guys. I know that you might be like, oh my gosh, she is letting her children be so unsupervised, but like they're having a great time. So, and I'm having a great time right now. This is what we call parallel play. So this is actually some non-superwash yarn that was given to me by, I purchased it from a friend, an internet friend off of Discord, and she goes by Liz Co, I believe. I got 2 skeins of her fingering weight non-superwash wool. So you can see at the bottom there, it's Liz Co Knits. And I love it. I think it's gorgeous. And I'm not sure what it was dyed with. I'm assuming it would have been like an acid dye or something, but it is so beautiful. And like, it's dark, obviously, but it's also really, it's a little more brilliant than it's showing up on camera. In real life, it's a little more brilliant than it's showing up on camera, but I really, really like it. And this color also is going to be used in the majority of the body, I believe, if I've looked at my contrast colors correctly. And so I think that'll be where the blue really makes it shine. This dark red here, dark purple red here, I'm using in place of, I think in the sample it was black. And so this is the Mulberry Heather colorway that I used in my friend's Musselburgh. So this is actually leftovers that I'm using for this. And I love using leftovers. It just feels so good to be able to stash bust that. And this is that yarn, the Scout yarn, and it is in the color Mulberry Heather. Here you can see that's the dye lot back there and the color number and everything. And I got that at a yarn store called Hank when I was visiting my sister in Cincinnati. And then this is by Michaela the Maker. She is coming out with this new line of Anne of Green Gables yarn, and oh my goodness, it looks so good. So just go over and check it out. Of course, all of us need to be following as many yarn people as possible, I know, but it's so good. I bought this from her in a D-stash sale she was doing a while back, and this is a DK weight yarn. This is, the colorway is called Oregon Coast, and I love it. I love the way that there's like grays and a little bit of browns, but the grays are also, like the browns are also kind of gray. I like that. And that is the color that's happening right here. So I'm just about to rejoin. I just rejoined my blush copper here in the colorway. I need to make my way around again with that for the next part of this one. Yeah, I like it so much. I was watching other knitters and like their progress on the sweater, and I thought, man, maybe the test knit is just full of a bunch of people who are faster knitters than me. That's fine. That's okay. That's fine. I don't need to win the test knit by being the fastest. You know, I've realized that winning the test knit for me is actually being a really good test knitter. So really good test knitters weigh their yarn before they start. And they keep track of, like, they do the math on how many yards they used when they're done, and they communicate any modifications they might want to make. And yeah, and that is how you win a test knit. Can you tell I grew up in a competitive family? I want to win test knits. Anyway, so yeah, so I've just had to redefine winning a test knit for myself. There are these little eyelets in here in the stripes that I really like. I love them. And they look really uniform, and I just think that's really cool. I like the way she spaced that out. And so, but they were doing, so, but yeah, anyway, how can you tell my brain sometimes like buffers? So I realize now that maybe we all aren't the fastest test knitters in the test knit, but this is just so enjoyable to do. Like, you get to do color work, you get to do stripes, you get to go back to color work. Later there's a little more stripes, then you get to do some solid color work. It's just the color work, solid color knitting, and zone out for a minute. Like, it's just all the things that knitters love. It's all the things. And I had to put it down last night just to go to bed. I wasn't actually done enjoying it. So I'm excited to do more of this one. And they have been so understanding. She and her tech editor, Jessica, have been so understanding, because I didn't realize, I should have read the whole thing, right? Also, good test knitters read all the things. I didn't read the whole tester call specs, and I signed up for the wrong size, assuming that the sweater would have positive ease to it, but it's actually a sweater with 0 negative ease. It's just 0 ease is the goal, or a little bit of negative ease is what they're going for. So I signed up for the wrong size because I assumed, maybe it was because I was looking at the Ola cardigan specs and switching back and forth or something, but I thought, oh yeah, it'll be this many inches of positive ease, this will be the size I need to knit, which was a G. And then I was about to cast on, I was looking at what I needed to do, I was looking at the specs again and thought, oh my goodness, no, the size I actually need to knit for my chest circumference is a D. And so, and these letters have nothing to do with like bra sizes or anything. It's just like, you know, as if she had done them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know. So I emailed Jessica, the tech editor, and said, I'm so sorry. I know that the tester call is closed, so, you know, I can still knit the G if you want me to knit the G. That's just not my size. And I would still love to participate. I'm so sorry. You know, let me know if it's okay if I can knit the D size. And she said, that's totally fine. We have enough knitters for, you know, you to move sizes. That's totally fine. And I was just like, oh, good. Because most of the time, if you can't get a pattern done in time or some snafu like that happens, you just pay for the pattern after the test knit is done, because you kind of got a sneak peek, and, you know, yeah, everybody else after that who didn't finish the test knit would have to pay for the pattern, right? So yeah, so they were really understanding and really nice, and I'm really excited to just continue being a better test knitter. I really love doing it. And so what's fun too is I definitely have gauge here, and that's really fun because I know it's going to fit me well. And I think I actually might go in and weave in my ends soon, because there are a few right now, and I usually knit mine in if I'm switching colors in just even one color knitting. But with this, I haven't done that, because in my DK weight tread heavy sock, when I was knitting one of those in, you can kind of see where it is. You can see where the darker yarn, where I was knitting that in. And I'm not happy about that. That's kind of been my go-to way to weave in ends without having to weave them in, just to knit them in as I go. But dealing with a higher contrast yarn there, it didn't work out that way. So obviously this has some significant contrast in the colors. So I'm just going to weave these in as I go, as I would, you know, do for, as I would have done before I started knitting them in, which is fine. That's fine too. I just also, because there's, before I weave them in, there's like these little pockets that are poofing out of this one, of this end, excuse me, of that end, and I just want to, it keeps distracting me like I made a mistake or something, and I didn't make a mistake. I just have a little loose end there. That is the end of the WIPs. I still have my shawlography sweater. It's still sitting in the same place. I still want to get to it. The thing is it's not something that is gonna make me any money. And it's not something that I have promised to someone. And so it'll probably be here for a hot minute. I will be excited to get it going when I finish my test knits, because I feel like having a couple of sweaters on the needles is my jam right now. This might just be the year of sweaters for me. I'm not sure. I thought I might be done knitting sweaters after the winter, but I'm definitely not. I'm still very excited about knitting myself more sweaters and potentially knitting my sister a sweater. She's like one of the most knitworthy persons in my life, aside from my children. My children are probably the most knitworthy people in my life, but my sister's a close second. And so I've been thinking about, obviously I'm going to be giving her the Malweena Socks, but I've been thinking about doing a sweater too, because I would have enough time to do that. But here's the thing. This is what I often do. I think, oh, that would be a good idea for this person, and that would be a good idea for this person, and don't actually think about the reality of what I'm planning to do in my brain. So I'm trying to actually write things down that I have an idea of doing, and that way I can more accurately prioritize what should be on the needles at that point. And and now that I've done a worsted weight sweater twice, I've done this is a worsted weight sweater, and the Malweena was a worsted weight sweater. Now obviously this took a bit longer because of the color work and steeking and all of that, but they don't take as long as I thought they would. Obviously the sport weight sweater is still, it's gonna be a minute, but if I decided to make her a worsted weight sweater, it wouldn't take that long because she's shorter than me and she has shorter arms than me. So there's that. Okay, and this is the last part. This is acquisition time. I have a few things I wanted to show you because they're just so scrumptious. It's just all yarn. So this is more shepherd's wool from my local yarn shop. I have some over here. I have this here. I just keep buying out. Like, this is the second color I've purchased. Just like took every skein that was on the wall, because shepherd's wool isn't selling in local yarn shops anymore. They've scaled back and they're just selling it online or in their shop. So I got 6 skeins here of the berries colorway, and this red is just so good. It's this heathered dark red. And this is gonna be a sweater, definitely, and maybe more things, because I don't think I'll need this many for a sweater for myself, but I don't know. I'm gonna make it into something amazing because it's amazing. I know this is gonna be on my needles soon. It's good. It's good stuff. And I just keep going to my local yarn shop, and whenever I can, I buy a color because I don't know. I'm dealing with a little bit of moving, just struggling with moving mentally a little bit. And I can talk to you about that in a minute. But yeah, a little bit of a scarcity mindset, a little bit of a purging mindset, and those are like not jiving together. So this is Annie Perrin's yarn. If you or your children are fans of Encanto, like we are, Encanto, like we are, holy moly, we watch it all the time. I cry at it all the time. She is doing Encanto inspired colorways. So if you go to her Etsy shop, this is her card right here. She is still doing pre-orders as far as I know. And she has some of that in French back there because she lives in Quebec and Montreal in Canada. And these are so good. This one is called Surface Pressure, and this one is called We Don't Talk About Bruno. And I think they are so good. They're so good. I'm almost positive this one is going to be a Musselburgh because the song Surface Pressure just, it resonates with me a lot. Like, I cry almost every time I hear it. And on days where I am feeling pretty vulnerable, I wear my Musselburgh quite a bit. And so I'm either going to make this into a Musselburgh or a slouchy hat. It's going to be a hat of some kind, because on days where I feel like the surface pressure is too much, I will put on a hat and feel better. This is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. It is very squishy. These skeins are 115 grams, and most of the time that means it's a little bit more than 115 grams. They're just so look at that. Look at that brown and the blues together. I will be channeling Louisa for sure. And then these are so perfect for Bruno, and like just very, very grunge, you know, which is his deal. He lives in the walls, and that makes sense. So I love these. I wish I could have purchased the whole collection, but I had to choose the ones that I like the best, and she is still doing the pre-orders for them, so definitely go check that out. I'm in love with them. And that's it for today. For those of you who are just here for knitting stuff or yarn or all of that, we are done with that section. Just a little bit of a life update. We are hopefully closing on our house on Friday, and that is a little surreal. We've never purchased a house before. My husband and I have been married for 7 years, and we've had 4 kids, and so in that space of time we've moved a lot. Actually, we've moved more, on average we've moved more than once a year, even though we've been in this house almost 3 years now. So a lot of that was for his job, or because we had another baby, and so we needed to make room for that beautiful baby. And so this is the first house we've ever purchased, and it's very exciting. It's in Indiana. Both of our families are in Indiana, with the exception of one of my sisters who lives in Ohio, but that'll actually still be closer to her than we are now. So that's a big deal. And as a knitter, it's been really interesting to review the way I'm thinking about my yarn collection as we're getting ready to move. And I think I've just come to the place now that whatever it is fine when we move. It doesn't have to be in this place of like, you know, I have a purpose for all of the yarn that I have before I move. Or that I've completely destashed things I don't think I'm going to use before I move, or that I have to make sure that I support my local yarn shop as much as I possibly financially can before I move, because I love them and they're the best, and that's what I really want to do. But like, obviously this is a time in our life where money is always finite, of course, but in this period of our lives, we need to be saving a little bit more than we normally would, because moving just has expenses, right, that you don't foresee all the time. So yeah, it's been interesting, the difference in how I have been thinking through yarn purchases or destashes while I've been preparing to move. And I think I've come to a good place around it, but who knows? Maybe next week I'll be having to tell myself, like, no, you cannot buy all that yarn. I just really don't know. Before I go, I wanted to share some podcasters that are relatively new to the YouTube knitting world. I have really enjoyed them, and so I'm just going to put them up here so that you can see their actual names and they all have less than 10 episodes up right now, so they're definitely newer voices to be listening to, and I have enjoyed them so much. So please go over and give them a follow, and if you liked this video, be sure to give me a follow and comment below. I look forward to see you next time, and happy knitting!